The Trump administration is terminating thousands of foreign aid grants and awards, effectively gutting the U.S. Agency for International Development. And legendary actor Gene Hackman has died at the age of 95. Good morning. I'm Windsor Johnston with NPR News, and here are today's top stories. The White House will continue to withhold funding from the U.S. Agency for International Development. The Supreme Court on Wednesday paused a lower court ruling that required the Trump administration to pay nearly $2 billion in foreign assistance to USAID. NPR's Fatma Tanis reports the agency has been effectively gutted.
Those grants funded all kinds of humanitarian and development projects aimed at disease control, migration prevention, hunger prevention, supporting human rights. And the same process has happened over at the State Department, where most foreign assistance grants, around 4,100, have been cut. The State Department says they've saved about $60 billion, which is around 1% of the overall federal budget.
That's NPR's Fatma Tanis reporting. President Trump's pick to lead the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division was on Capitol Hill Wednesday for her confirmation hearing. NPR's Ryan Lucas reports she's a California attorney who's been an outspoken supporter of President Trump and a champion of conservative causes.
The Republican majority on the Senate Judiciary Committee appears to be united in support of Harmeet Dillon's nomination. At her confirmation hearing, Dillon said that fighting anti-Semitism on college campuses would be a priority for her, as would tackling DEI efforts that she said have been used to apply racial quotas to deny people equal access to education and employment.
So we'll certainly be taking a close look at all of those and enforcing the law equally in favor of all Americans.
Democrats and civil rights groups oppose her nomination. They say that in her previous work, Dillon has tried to restrict voting rights, transgender rights, and has opposed reproductive rights. Ryan Lucas, NPR News, Washington.
A federal judge in San Francisco will hear arguments today over whether the Trump administration's firing of thousands of probationary employees should be halted. NPR's Andrea Hsu reports it's one of the many legal challenges the administration is facing as it moves ahead with plans to downsize the federal workforce.
These were employees who were still on probationary status, meaning usually their first or second year in that job. And a lot of them were told that they were being fired for performance reasons, even though many of them had gotten positive performance reviews and some weren't even on the job long enough to get a review. So the labor unions are arguing that the agencies themselves had no plans to fire these employees and only did so at the direction of the administration and specifically the Office of Personnel Management.
NPR's Andrea Hsu reporting. President Trump will host British Prime Minister Keir Starmer at the White House today. NPR's Franco Ordonez reports the two leaders are expected to address a number of issues, including the war in Ukraine, defense spending, and tariffs.
The UK Prime Minister visits Washington days after the French President, Emmanuel Macron, spent the afternoon at the White House, urging Trump to maintain U.S. support for Ukraine. Keir Starmer will be echoing those calls, and he hopes to woo Trump with his recent announcement of an increase in defense spending as a commitment to boost Europe's security. Starmer says Britain will increase its defense spending to 2.5% of economic output by 2027. Trump has spent much of his first few weeks back in power criticizing U.S. allies for not spending enough on defense, while his own administration builds stronger ties with Russia. Starmer is also expected to seek exemptions from Trump's proposed tariffs on steel and aluminum imports. Franco Ordonez, NPR News.
Health officials in Texas say more than 20 people are hospitalized amid an outbreak of measles that has left one child dead. Dr. Lara Johnson, the chief medical officer at Covenant Health in Lubbock, says the risk is low for people who have been vaccinated.
For those of us who are fully vaccinated against measles, the risk, a lot of people are worried about what's your risk in the community. Your risk is extremely, extremely low of having any issues at all with measles. The risk with measles is really for those who are not immune, who have not been vaccinated.
The CDC says 124 confirmed cases of the measles, mostly among teens and children, have been confirmed in the U.S. so far this year. The government predicts the cost of eggs will rise more than 40% this year. Egg prices are higher in the U.S. because of a shortage triggered by an outbreak of bird flu. Legendary actor Gene Hackman and his wife have been found dead at their home in Santa Fe, New Mexico. NPR's Mandalit Del Barco reports the Oscar-winning actor's career spanned more than 6 decades.
Sheriff Adan Mendoza's office said deputies were dispatched to a home in Santa Fe's Hyde Park neighborhood. That's where they found the bodies of 95-year-old Gene Hackman and his 63-year-old wife Betsy Arakawa, a retired classical pianist. Their dog was also found dead. Authorities say they're investigating exactly how and when they died, but that there was no immediate indication of foul play. Hackman had been living in New Mexico for years after a long career in TV and films, including the 1967 film Bonnie and Clyde. He won 2 Academy Awards for The French Connection and Unforgiven, and Hackman was memorable in a range of movies, from The Poseidon Adventure to Young Frankenstein, Superman to The Royal Tenenbaums. Mandalit Del Barco, NPR News.
I'm Windsor Johnston, and you're listening to NPR News from Washington.